1960s typing training exam. In this intriguing 1960s photograph, candidates are seen taking a typing exam while wearing masks that obscure their vision. By preventing them from seeing the keyboard, this innovative method was designed to enhance tactile memory, ultimately boosting both speed and accuracy in touch typing. Celebration of the repeal of Prohibition, December 5, 1933. Captured the night Prohibition was officially repealed on December 5, 1933. This vibrant image showcases a crowded bar filled with jubilant patrons. Clinking glasses and raised bottles symbolize the collective relief and joy following 13 years of the ban on alcohol production and sales in the United States. O.J. Simpson trial highlights. This snapshot from the infamous O.J. Simpson trial captures a pivotal moment when the gloves presented as evidence did not fit Simpson's hands. The defense famously countered, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," a statement that became a defining moment in the 1995 acquittal, sparking widespread controversy and public debate. Child's drawing from Kabul, early 21st century. A poignant drawing by a child in Kabul, Afghanistan, portrays a violent execution scene, reflecting the harsh realities and conflicts under the Taliban regime. This artwork underscores the brutality and turmoil that deeply affected the lives of children during that period. Survival amidst the Russian famine of 1921. In the Zaporizhia region of Ukraine, a heartbreaking photograph from 1921 shows a starving boy in the village of Blahoveshchenko. Faced with extreme famine, the boy tragically resorted to cannibalism, consuming his 3-year-old brother in a desperate bid for survival. The 1921 famine was one of the Soviet Union's most severe humanitarian crises, claiming millions of lives and driving people to unimaginable acts. Glasgow Lamplighter, 1955. This 1955 image from Glasgow, Scotland, features a lamplighter diligently lighting a gas lamp on a city street. Before the widespread adoption of electric lighting, lamplighters played a crucial role in illuminating European and American cities each night using long poles to manage the gas lamps. The advent of electric lighting eventually rendered this profession obsolete. Tragic ascent on the north face of the Eiger, 1957. Captured in 1957, this photograph depicts Stefano Loni's ill-fated climb on the north face of the Eiger in the Swiss Alps. His final words, "Fame, cold, hunger," echoed his desperate situation. Despite heroic rescue efforts, Loni succumbed to exposure, and his body remained on the mountain for over 2 years before being recovered. Nikola Tesla's final days, January 1, 1943. The last known photograph of Nikola Tesla, taken on January 1, 1943, shortly before his death, shows a man whose genius significantly advanced science and engineering. Tesla's work on alternating current systems and radio frequency innovations were groundbreaking. Yet he died impoverished and alone in a New York City hotel, his contributions often unrecognized during his lifetime. Trofim Lysenko and Soviet Agriculture, 1930. This 1930 photograph features Trofim Lysenko, president of the Lenin Academy of Agricultural Sciences, examining wheat growth near Odessa, Ukraine. Lysenko promoted pseudoscientific agricultural theories aligned with communist ideology, which led to widespread crop failures and contributed to the famine that resulted in the deaths of approximately 3.9 million people. Inaugural subway ride at Edgware Road Station, 1862. Step back to 1862 with this image of the first subway ride at Edgware Road Station in London. Part of the original London Underground line, this steam-powered subway was introduced to reduce street congestion and quickly became a favored, efficient mode of transportation for Londoners. Hanoi Air Raid Shelter, 1970. Taken in Hanoi, Vietnam, in 1970, this photograph shows a young soldier lighting a cigarette for an older man, both using crutches after losing a leg. They are in a cemetery near a sign commemorating the massacre of 45 students by American bombing on March 16, 1965, highlighting the enduring scars of the Vietnam War on its survivors. Ku Klux Klan protest in Gainesville, Georgia, 1992. This striking image from 1992 captures an unexpected interaction during a Ku Klux Klan protest in Gainesville, Georgia. A child dressed in Klan robes approaches a black state police officer. As the officer holds his protective shield, the boy notices his reflection and reaches out to touch it, symbolizing a poignant moment of confrontation and reflection. The Bevan boys descending into Markham Colliery, 1943. In this 1943 photograph from Yorkshire, England, the Bevan boys, young men recruited during World War II, are seen preparing to work in the coal mines at Markham Colliery. Named after Ernest Bevan, the Minister of Labour, these young men took on arduous labor in the mines to support the British war effort instead of serving in the armed forces. Early selfie. World War I biplane pilot, 1915. One of the earliest known selfies. This 1915 photograph shows a World War I biplane pilot capturing his own image mid-flight. Biplanes like this one were essential for reconnaissance, aerial combat, and bombing missions during the war, and this personal snapshot provides a unique glimpse into the lives of early aviators. Soviet space dogs Belka and Strelka, 1960. This historic photo from 1960 features the Soviet space dogs Belka and Strelka being retrieved from their spacecraft after a successful orbit around Earth. Their safe return marked a significant achievement in space exploration, demonstrating the feasibility of living organisms surviving space travel. Hanoi Air Raid Alert Shelter, 1967. Captured in 1967. This image shows residents of Hanoi taking shelter in sidewalk sewers as they await the end of an air raid alert during the Vietnam War. Frequent air raids made such improvised shelters a necessary refuge, allowing civilians to stay safe until the danger had passed. Empire State Building B-25 bomber collision, July 28, 1945. This dramatic photograph documents the tragic collision between a B-25 bomber and the Empire State Building on July 28, 1945. Flying through heavy fog, the plane struck the skyscraper, destroying part of its upper floors and igniting a fire. The accident resulted in the deaths of 14 individuals, including the aircraft crew and building workers. Nancy Reagan and Mr. T at the White House. In this charming yet fictional image, Nancy Reagan is seen sitting on Mr. T's lap as he dons a Santa Claus outfit at the White House. While this heartwarming scene captures the spirit of camaraderie and festivity, it's important to note that there is no historical record of such an event actually taking place. December 1983, a heartwarming Christmas moment with Nancy Reagan and Mr. T. In December 1983, during a festive Christmas celebration at the White House, an unforgettable moment unfolded. Initially, attendees felt hesitant about sitting on Mr. T's lap, given his tough guy persona from popular culture. However, the First Lady, Nancy Reagan, took the initiative to bridge the gap, gracefully sitting on his lap first. Her gesture not only eased the tension, but also created a lighthearted and memorable scene that showcased unity and warmth during the holiday season. Harry Houdini's daring escape on the Harvard Bridge. Witness the legendary Harry Houdini in action on the historic Harvard Bridge. Known for his extraordinary escapology, Houdini was once chained by a police officer in a public display before performing one of his most famous escapes. In this dramatic event, Houdini challenged the public's perception of danger by jumping into the cold waters below the bridge, swiftly freeing himself from the chains. His fearless performances captivated audiences worldwide, cementing his status as a master illusionist and escape artist. Istvan Reiner. Innocence lost in the Holocaust. This haunting 1940s studio portrait captures 4-year-old Istvan Reiner, smiling innocently while dressed in the striped uniform of a Nazi concentration camp prisoner. Tragically, Istvan's life was cut short as he perished in Auschwitz during the Holocaust. This poignant image serves as a stark reminder of the unimaginable suffering endured by countless children during one of history's darkest periods. Philippe Petit's historic tightrope walk between the Twin Towers, 1974. In 1974, Philippe Petit achieved the impossible by walking a tightrope between the iconic Twin Towers of New York City. This iconic photograph captures Petit balancing gracefully at an astounding height of approximately 1,312 feet above the ground. For about 45 minutes, he performed a series of acrobatic feats and poses, all without any safety equipment, mesmerizing the crowd below and showcasing human daring and artistry at its finest. James Brock and the Monson Motor Lodge protest, St. Augustine, 1964. James Brock, the owner of the Monson Motor Lodge in St. Augustine, Florida, made a notorious stand during the civil rights movement. In this disturbing photograph, Brock is seen pouring acid into the hotel pool in an attempt to disperse black and white protesters. These demonstrators had gathered to protest Brock's refusal to serve Martin Luther King Jr. a week earlier, leading to King's subsequent arrest. This act of violence underscores the intense resistance faced by civil rights activists during their fight for equality. George McLaurin, breaking barriers at the University of Oklahoma, 1948. In 1948, George McLaurin became the first black student admitted to the University of Oklahoma, marking a significant milestone in the fight against segregation. However, due to the oppressive segregation laws of the time, McLaurin faced harsh conditions. He was forced to study in segregated classrooms, cafeterias, and libraries, isolated from his white peers. Despite these challenges, McLaurin's perseverance paved the way for future generations of black students in higher education. Princess Diana's compassionate gesture, shaking hands with an AIDS patient. Princess Diana was renowned for her compassionate nature and commitment to humanitarian causes. In a groundbreaking moment, she shook hands with an AIDS patient without wearing gloves at a care center for individuals with HIV. This powerful gesture was instrumental in challenging the widespread misconceptions and stigma surrounding AIDS, demonstrating that the disease could not be transmitted through simple physical contact. Her actions played a crucial role in raising awareness and fostering understanding during a time of fear and misinformation. 1960s Lufthansa, elevating in-flight experience with beer service. During the 1960s, Lufthansa distinguished itself in the aviation industry by offering beer on board its flights. This commitment to providing a quality travel experience included sophisticated meals and a diverse selection of beverages that highlighted German culture. The inclusion of draft beer not only enhanced passenger satisfaction, but also showcased Lufthansa's dedication to excellence and cultural pride, setting a standard for in-flight services. Belgian coal miners' grueling work conditions, 1920. This compelling photograph from 1920 depicts Belgian coal miners crammed in elevators after a long and arduous shift in the mines. Coal mining was a cornerstone of Belgium's economy, fueling the Industrial Revolution and driving significant economic growth. However, miners endured dangerous and physically demanding conditions underground. This image highlights the human cost behind industrial progress and the resilience of those who powered the nation's economic engine. Women delivering ice in Manhattan, 1918. A shift in the labor market. In 1918, two young girls are seen delivering blocks of ice on the bustling streets of Manhattan. Prior to World War I, such labor-intensive jobs were predominantly held by men. However, the war-induced shortage of male workers opened opportunities for women to take on roles previously inaccessible to them. These young girls' employment in ice delivery not only reflects the societal shifts during the war, but also signifies the beginning of significant changes in the U.S. labor market, paving the way for greater gender equality in the workforce. Apollo 1 crew, A Prayer Before Tragedy, 1966, captured in a solemn 1966 photograph. The crew of Apollo 1, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger B. Chaffee, are seen kneeling and praying for the structural integrity of their command module. This moment of reflection and hope preceded a tragic event just a few months later. On January 27, 1967, during a routine test, a catastrophic fire broke out in the module, resulting in the untimely deaths of the three astronauts. This heartbreaking incident underscored the immense risks of space exploration and led to significant changes in NASA's safety protocols. 1941 Japanese anti-British propaganda poster. This striking 1941 Japanese propaganda poster portrays two women holding their noses in disgust beside an image of British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. The use of the initials WC below the image serves a dual purpose. It refers to Churchill's name while also functioning as a derogatory term for water closet, a crude attempt to ridicule the British leader during World War II. Bonnie and Clyde, Outlaws at Play. Captured in a rare moment of playfulness, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow are seen handling a rifle, a stark contrast to their otherwise perilous lives. The infamous duo gained notoriety during the Great Depression for their string of bank robberies, police shootouts, and daring escapes. This image, along with other photos left behind after one of their narrow escapes, was widely published in newspapers, contributing to their transformation into legendary figures of American crime. 1925. A little girl visits her twin's grave. In this eerie 1925 photograph, a young girl stands solemnly by her twin sister's grave, who had died tragically in a fire the previous year. Yet, a closer look reveals a disturbing detail in the water's reflection, a figure seemingly standing next to the girl. Those familiar with the tragedy believe this to be the ghostly presence of her departed sister, making it one of the most haunting images of grief and loss. Inside a gas chamber at Auschwitz concentration camp. This harrowing image of the interior of a gas chamber at Auschwitz in Poland reveals marks on the walls, a chilling testament to the desperate final moments of its victims. Auschwitz was the largest Nazi extermination camp during World War II, where over 1 million people, mostly Jews, were murdered between 1940 and 1945. This haunting image serves as a stark reminder of the brutality of the Holocaust. 1917 gas attack in the Somme region during World War I. This aerial photo from 1917 captures a gas attack by French forces during World War I in the Somme region. The use of chemical weapons, including deadly gas, was one of the most devastating tactics of the war, inflicting terrible injuries on exposed soldiers and leaving a lasting impact on the horrors of trench warfare. Sailors in 1870, vital players in naval and commercial fleets. This image from 1870 depicts sailors, crucial members of both naval and commercial fleets of the era. Their expertise in navigation and logistics made them indispensable in transporting goods and people across the globe. Sailors' lives were marked by hard work, danger, and a spirit of adventure, reflecting the expansive reach of maritime industries in the 19th century. Dachau concentration camp liberation, 1945. This powerful photograph, taken shortly after the liberation of the Dachau concentration camp in 1945, shows former prisoners preparing to execute an SS guard with a shovel. In the background, an American soldier appears to ignore the scene. The guard had been known for terrorizing and murdering men, women, and children at the camp. This moment highlights the raw, immediate thirst for retribution among those who had suffered under Nazi oppression. Night Witches, Soviet women pilots of World War II. The Night Witches, a group of brave Soviet pilots from the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, flew stealth missions against Nazi forces during World War II. In 1941, these women earned their nickname from the Germans due to their silent, engine-off glides in the final moments of bombing runs. Renowned for their audacity and skill, they were among the most feared and effective pilots in the Soviet Air Force, demonstrating remarkable bravery in the face of extreme danger. 2011 Japan earthquake and tsunami survivor. This heart-wrenching image shows a survivor crying in front of the rubble that was once her home, destroyed by the devastating earthquake and tsunami that struck Japan on March 11, 2011. The 9.0 magnitude quake unleashed waves up to 131 feet high, leading to over 20,000 deaths and the collapse of 3 reactors at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. It remains one of the most catastrophic natural and nuclear disasters in recent history. Nurses in trenches during World War I, 1918. This 1918 photograph captures nurses working in makeshift trenches built between hospital wards in France during World War I. These trenches were essential for protecting medical personnel and patients from constant enemy bombardment, reflecting the harsh and dangerous conditions of field hospitals close to the front lines. The last photo of Tupac Shakur, 1996. The final photograph of rapper Tupac Shakur was taken just 20 minutes before he was fatally shot in Las Vegas on September 7, 1996. He was leaving a boxing match alongside producer Suge Knight when the attack occurred. Tupac succumbed to his injuries 6 days later. 6 months after his death, Knight was implicated in the murder of another famous rapper, Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls, deepening the mystery and tragedy surrounding the deaths of both hip-hop legends. The Beatles meet Muhammad Ali, 1964. In 1964, at the height of their respective careers, the Beatles met boxing legend Muhammad Ali in Miami. The meeting occurred while the band was on their first American tour, and Ali was preparing for his legendary fight against Sonny Liston. The photograph of their encounter captures a unique moment when two major forces in pop culture came together, symbolizing the vibrant spirit of the 1960s. John F. Kennedy's funeral, November 1963. While many images of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy are well known, this rarely seen photograph from his funeral in November 1963 shows the solemn moments when world leaders and American citizens paid their final respects to the 35th President of the United States. The scene, filled with both dignity and sorrow, marks a pivotal moment in American history. American farmer John Mites, victim of mob violence, 1918. John Mites, an American farmer of German descent, was tarred and feathered by a mob in 1918. Occurring during World War I, this act of mob violence was motivated by anti-German sentiment and accusations of Mites' disloyalty due to his heritage. It reflects the intense xenophobia and patriotism that often blurred the lines of justice during wartime. Anti-German sentiment in America, 1918. During World War I, anti-German sentiment ran high in the U.S., leading to discrimination and violence against German Americans. This era saw incidents like that of John Mites, a farmer who was tarred and feathered by a mob for his German ancestry. Such attacks were driven by war-induced xenophobia, demonstrating the deep divisions and suspicions present in wartime America. President Warren G. Harding greets wounded World War I veterans, 1921. In a poignant 1921 photograph, President Warren G. Harding is seen greeting wounded World War I veterans. One man, having lost his legs, sits on a makeshift board with wheels, a solution used before comprehensive veteran care systems were in place. This image captures the stark reality of post-war life and the limited support available to disabled veterans during that era. Nelson Mandela's release from prison, 1990. In an iconic moment in 1990, Nelson Mandela, alongside his wife Winnie, raises a clenched fist to greet supporters shortly after being released from prison. Imprisoned for 27 years due to his anti-apartheid activism, Mandela's release marked a turning point in South Africa's fight against racial segregation. His journey would culminate in his historic election as the country's first black president in 1994, signaling the dawn of a new era. F-100 firing bullpup missile during the Vietnam War. This dramatic photo captures an American F-100 jet firing a bullpup missile at a target during an air mission in the Vietnam War. The bullpup missile, manually guided by pilots, was used to precisely strike ground targets. Over 5,000 of these missiles were deployed by American forces in support of South Vietnam, demonstrating the evolving strategies and technologies of the conflict. Santos Dumont's historic flight in the 14 bis, 1906. In 1906, Brazilian aviation pioneer Santos Dumont flew his 14 bis airplane in Paris, achieving a controlled and sustained flight of about 197 feet at a height of 10 feet. This remarkable feat, considered one of the first public flights of a heavier-than-air machine, cemented Dumont's place in aviation history and symbolized humanity's quest for flight. Oklahoma City bombing, 1995. On April 19, 1995, Timothy McVeigh detonated a truck bomb at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, causing massive devastation. The bombing killed 168 people, including 19 children, and injured over 600 others, marking it as the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in U.S. history at the time. The attack left a deep scar on the nation and highlighted the threat of homegrown extremism. The fighting finish. Kentucky Derby, 1933. In a dramatic moment during the 1933 Kentucky Derby, jockeys Don Meade and Herb Fisher began fighting while still riding their horses, making for one of the most talked-about finishes in Derby history. Known as the fighting finish, the incident captured the fierce competitiveness of horse racing and remains an unforgettable moment in the event's legacy pyramid of German helmets at Grand Central, 1919. In 1919, A pyramid made of German helmets was displayed at New York's Grand Central Terminal to celebrate the Allied victory in World War I. The public display symbolized triumph over the German Empire and also served as a fundraiser for American veterans. The pyramid, built from war trophies, reflected the national sentiment of victory and patriotism. Artisanal car manufacturing in England, 1903. A 1903 photograph from J. Plater's workshop in Buckinghamshire, England, shows workers crafting carriages, vans, and early cars. This image illustrates the blend of manual craftsmanship and industrialization during the early 20th century, a time when traditional production methods coexisted with the rapid advancements of the Industrial Revolution. Soviet female snipers in World War II. During World War II, the Soviet Union trained around 2,000 women as snipers, who played crucial roles in defending key positions and eliminating targets. These brave women were part of the effort to halt the Axis advance, demonstrating extraordinary skill and tenacity on the battlefield. Liberation of Paris, August 25, 1944. Parisians filled the streets to celebrate as Allied tanks rolled through the Arc de Triomphe on August 25, 1944, marking the end of 4 years of Nazi occupation. Led by General Charles de Gaulle, the Free French and Allied forces were welcomed with overwhelming joy, symbolizing a turning point in the fight for freedom in Europe. Jennifer Lopez's Versace dress at the 2000 Grammy Awards. At the 2000 Grammy Awards, Jennifer Lopez wore a Versace dress that sparked a cultural phenomenon. The dress, with its bold design, became the most searched query on Google, leading to the creation of Google Images. This iconic fashion moment highlights how popular culture can drive technological innovation. Sudan underground nuclear explosion, 1962. The Sudan nuclear test, part of the American nuclear program, took place in the Nevada desert in 1962, creating a massive crater 328 feet deep and 1,280 feet wide. The test aimed to study the effects of underground nuclear explosions and was one of many conducted during the Cold War to better understand nuclear capabilities and their impact. IRA signed during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, 1994. In this 1994 photograph, a sign posted by the Irish Republican Army, IRA, warns British troops of their adversaries during the conflict. The IRA, seeking Irish reunification and independence, used guerrilla tactics and attacks to challenge British rule. For years later, the signing of the Belfast Agreement in 1998 led to a ceasefire and the gradual disbandment of the IRA. French knife grinders working posture, 1902. In 1902, French knife grinders were photographed working face down, a common practice to reduce back pain from prolonged standing. This unconventional technique, though rudimentary, was an attempt to mitigate the physical strain of manual labor during the era. Geronimo in St. Louis, 1904. This 1904 photograph shows Apache leader Geronimo surrounded by men, women, and a child during a public event in St. Louis. By this time, Geronimo and other Native Americans were under significant pressure from the U.S. government, often displayed at public events as cultural curiosities, reflecting the complex and tragic history of Native American relations with the United States. Hurricane Katrina devastation in New Orleans, 2005. A soldier surveys the flooded city of New Orleans following Hurricane Katrina in August 2005. The catastrophic hurricane caused an estimated $125 billion in damage and destroyed 80% of the city. Over 1,800 people died, many of whom were from vulnerable, low-income communities that faced immense challenges in evaluating and finding shelter.